Welcome out to the show, guys. This is Studio 321. This is your podcast host, Eddie B, coming at you from the 321. So I'm sure most people saw the fireworks yesterday on TV between Trump and the Congress. It was at the congressional meeting. He basically, it's almost like a State of the Union. And, man, the Democrats were acting really weird. Al Green, the Democrat from Texas, got censured and got kicked out of the chamber for yelling at Trump. The rest of the Democrats, they were acting weird all night. They were holding up these little ping pong paddles with a bunch of weird sayings on them and, just a bunch of activism stuff. The whole group of them were wearing pink with like magic marker written all over it. It was pretty strange. They looked like a bunch of sour grapes. They didn't clap for anything. I mean, even when Trump was talking about that 13-year-old boy who wanted to become a cop who had cancer, they wouldn't clap for that. Or when, the 95-year-old grandmother was in the crowd with her son who Trump got him back from Russia. He was actually a prisoner over there for the last so many years. And, Trump promised her if he got reelected, he would get her son home, and he did. And she was there in the crowd, and, she stood up, and everybody was cheering, and her son was there with her, and none of them clapped for that. It was a very odd situation, and I'm sitting there watching that. And all I could think to myself was, Obama's actually finished now. Like, it's over for him. And the funny thing about that is, ever since the speech to Congress, you haven't heard one word, not a peep out of Obama. It's like he disappeared because he knows it's completely over for him now. And he also knows that he's the reason that the Democrat Party is destroyed. He knows it. But I'm going to get to that part in a minute. But anyway, so going back to 2008, right, when Obama got elected, he did this, it was a pretty famous speech, and I remember hearing it. I was sitting in my living room watching it, and I thought to myself, wow, this he's awesome. He's a Democrat, and I was a Democrat back then because the party was different back then, and I thought, he was looking out for the working Joes like me, and I was a tradesman, so he seemed very salt of the earth and make you feel good with his speeches. And so I really felt like he was the guy for the job, right? So I voted for him, which I soon regretted. It really took me about a year to figure out that he really didn't know what he was doing. But so here's the part where we get to how I think he destroyed that party completely. He appeared at first to be like a regular Democrat, kind of a down-the-line, salt-of-the-earth guy. But what he actually was a liberal, feminist, I'd say lefty, man, like almost extremist. And you really didn't know it right away because he hid that coming into the job, right? So as he got further through his presidency, he really recruited and opened the door for a lot of political activists to become governors, basically, not state governors, but working in the government as leaders. And here's the thing about activists, right? You do need them. They're good at pointing out problems. They're loud. They cry. They have weird, kooky ways of bringing attention to stuff. They'll sit in the middle of the road to protest oil drilling or wear a bunch of pink hats or have a bunch of kooky signs, and they'll cut off traffic and just annoy people. But it really does bring, problems to the surface, right? Things that need to be dealt with. So activists are always good at that. That's what they're good for. They're crybabies. But they're never good at fixing the problems. They'll bring up the problem, but they're never good at fixing the problem, right? So during Obama's presidency, he started filling the government up on his side, the Democrat side, with activist leadership. Now, it didn't really expose itself because the times weren't too pressing. You had the Iraq war going on, which, they weren't really much of a threat to us. They didn't have nuclear weapons, and they couldn't beat us. We were kind of pushing them around, and, in Afghanistan, same situation, nothing super pressing, right? But so their governing skills were not really being tested. Well, then you got to the end of Obama's term, and the economy was was tanking, and so people were kind of sick of that whole party at this time, and they were like, okay, we need to get somebody in here who can fix the economy because it was bad. And that's how Trump got elected. A lot of people don't understand that Trump got elected because of Obama. Trump ran on, I'm going to fix the economy that Obama tanked. That's what he did in 2016. So, Trump gets into office, gets elected. He starts working on the economy, which he did some pretty good things with it. But again, other than the economy, not a lot of super pressing issues, right? So the Democrats, they're just kind of coming along. They're doing their protesting when they need to, standing in the way of this and that, doing a few bills here and there. But their mettle wasn't really getting tested, if you know what I mean. Nothing serious had really come up yet. So everything's going along, and I don't even think the Democratic Party realized that it was getting, filled basically to the top with activists. Because your regular down the center Democrats, they're just kind of normal people. But so then you get to the end, of Trump's first term, and COVID hits, right? And COVID, for whatever you want to say about it, it did wreck our economy. We overreacted. We did a lot of things where it wrecked our economy. Everything went on lockdown. So now at this point, you're going to need some smart governorship. You're going to need some leaders that know what they're doing, right? But so on the Democrat side, all you got's a bunch of activists who've been sitting around all the time, like I said, just doing show stuff, crying about stuff and cool slogans and all this, but no real governing skills. And over the years, ever since Obama was, basically took that party over, they were running out of your down the line Democrats with real governing skills and just coming up with these activists. So now, Trump loses to Joe Biden, right? Well, Joe Biden's in office, but he's not really running the country. That was Obama again. So basically, Obama's been shadow governing the country because he's still the head of the party. Everybody looks to Obama, right? So I know they must have been on the phone probably once a week at least talking about this and that, and Obama's the guy. So because look, Joe Biden was always his lackey. Anybody can say what they want. Joe Biden's not that bright, never has been, and he actually had a reputation years and years ago of being one of the dumber senators in Washington. But that was just opinion stuff. But that was the opinion. So he's running the party now, and he's got to rely on all these Democrats around him to help him figure out how they're going to deal with COVID and finish dealing with the economy that it caused and this and that. And they had no clue, right? So what do? They're going out on all this activist stuff because they don't know how to govern by the numbers. So they're doing all this weird stuff, and they get into trans stuff, and they get into all this other stuff that really, it's cultural issues, but it's not really governing issues. So that just basically Joe Biden, being, half out to lunch anyways because of his mental condition, had nobody to lean on but a bunch of activists, right? And so their 4 years was an absolute tragedy. So now you fast forward to now, right? So Joe Biden loses the election, Trump wins. So when you come to this meeting, which is basically the first State of the Union meeting, kind of meeting with Congress, what you have is on the left, you have a bunch of Republicans. When I mean left, I mean left of the room. On the left side of the room, you have a bunch of Republicans who are pretty seasoned politicians, been in leadership a long time, not activist types, because conservatives are not activists. They're just not good at that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? They're not good at crying and making up weird ways to protest. They just don't do that kind of thing, right? And then you look at the right of the room, and you've got your AOC types, your Rashida Tlaibs, and they just look like a bunch of weirdos, first of all. And you look, while I'm on it, I'm going to complain about something. Why did a Democrat women always wear these dumb looking glasses that are like, they look like children's glasses that are way too big for their face. They're always weird colors, and it makes them look stupid. You know what I mean? I don't know what's up with that. It's unprofessional looking, makes them look immature and silly, like kind of like clowns. But anyways, that's a little sidebar. But so I'm looking at this group, and all you have over there is activists. There's no real leader, type people that you could lean on for like hard decisions and governing. They don't exist in that right now, right? So that's what you're left with. And the truth is, in the older days when nothing was really pressing and nobody cared and everything was kind of not great but not terrible, nobody really cared. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, activism is cute, and yeah, they really care and stuff. But now America's over that. They want answers. They want results, and the proof of that is a lot of folks don't really like, Donald Trump the way his demeanor is, because he's such an alpha type and he's so aggressive, and it kind of scares people off and makes them nervous. Now, I like it personally, but a lot of people don't, right? But they still voted for him because they're done with all this crying about stuff, activism. They want real results right now, okay? Because the people are feeling it. The economy's been hard. We don't got to get in all those details. All the prices of food, eggs, everything's up. Houses are barely affordable. Nobody can afford rent. Like, there's just a lot going on right now, and the people really want answers. And I think everybody really knows deep down that a group of activists aren't the kind of people you get those answers from. Again, they're good at bringing up the problem, but they're never good at solving it, right? So in the meeting to Congress the other night, they started all that activism crap, and people are looking at that, and it just, right now, it's just so overplayed. It's so burnt out, and it just looks like a group of people who have no idea what to do other than to just, scream and cry about things. And like I said, America's done with that right now. Maybe in the future, after Donald Trump fixes the economy and everything's smooth again, they'll be able to creep back into some power, because it won't be that important. You know what I'm saying? Like, there'll be nothing bad going on. And that's always when the left can come back in, because, they can start whining about stuff and everybody will be like, oh, it's so cute. They really care. But right now, we just want results. And so watching that the other night, I realized, it's the end of Obama's 20 years. He's done. He thought he was going to take the world and America to this liberal utopia type, globalist liberal society, and it's not going to happen. That is done as well. That whole globalist thing that they were marching towards, it's done. It's done. Trump has isolated America again. He's brought it back to a nationalist type of view, America first. And I think Americans are digging it. And I'm watching this group of activists sitting there in the House chamber the other night at the address to Congress, and I realized, number one, they don't have any leadership at the top of their group, and they'll even tell you that. There's been people on the news the last day just saying they don't really have a single leader at the top, a single clear leader, we'll say. And right now, technically, Hakeem Jeffries is the guy, but he's a paper tiger, man. He's actually, I think he's terrible. And as soon as they get somebody in there with the right stuff, he's gonna have to take the back seat. But yeah, I'm glad to see it happen. You know what I mean? And look, I think at this current pace, I think you're looking at least 8 more years of Republican control. I can't imagine the party coming back together fast enough, because look, number one, they're going to have to purge their own ranks. That means the centrist Democrats who got pushed off into the dark are going to have to reemerge and push these lefties out of their party. You know what it's going to be? It's going to be like? It's going to be like what Donald Trump just did to all the rhinos in the Republican Party. He basically booted them. Your Liz Cheney's, all the people like that. What's his name? Mitt Romney. Yeah, he basically Trump just got rid of all of them, and that's what needs to happen right now in the Democrat Party. They're gonna have to get rid of the lefties and the extremists. All these women sitting around, with all the dumb glasses on and all their weird haircuts, and then you got the purple hair. Like, nobody's taking that stuff serious anymore. It's done with. So they're gonna have to get rid of them, get back to real business, and look like a group who can actually govern the country before they're going to get any respect again. And that doesn't normally happen quickly. I see this being an 8 to 12 year project for them. So we'll see what Trump can do this 4 years. I'm excited about it. Let's see what happens. I think he's going to groom J.D. Vance well. And I think, there might be a dogfight in 28 to see who gets the Republican nomination, because there's a lot of talent right now. You got Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, you got Ron DeSantis. In my state, there's a lot of talent out there, so they're going to probably be fighting for it. But now I think some of the rhinos got pushed out of there, like your Nikki Haley's. I don't think she's coming back. But I'm just happy to see Obama gone, because he pissed me off. Like I said, I got suckered by him the first time, and then I realized pretty quick that he wasn't what he said he was. And he's basically driven the Democratic Party into the ground over the last 20 years. This is, in my mind, it's 100% squarely on him. And Tuesday night was the final result of that. And you watch the rest of their party fall apart completely. And to be honest with you, I was loving it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching tonight. Please like and subscribe. It really helps if you subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications button. I got some cool stuff coming up. I'm working on some military and cartel stuff right now, so just keep a lookout. And this is Eddie from 321 Studio, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Good night.